Well, hello and welcome to episode number 364 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, a rather large fight breaks out on board an aircraft. We find out why it's bad to be stressed while flying, and a member of the royal family goes for her sim check ride. In the military this week, we find out about a TBM Avenger that decided to go for a swim. A V22 Osprey redesigns a helicopter landing pad, and the US Air Force deploys a major exercise force to Poland. So joining me this week over in the PTUK studios, it is, of course, the legend of master of all things tech, Matt Smith.
Indeed, yes. Hello, everyone. Hello. How are we all? How are we all? Lovely. I'll tell you what, it's been in boring old UK. It must have been one of the warmest days of the year today, surely.
Ish, until the sun started to go down, Matt, and it's blooming cold outside now.
Mind you, it was a frost first thing, wasn't there? So I suppose it sort of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? You get a lovely clear night and a beautiful day, but unfortunately, because it's April, apparently we still have frosts.
I must say, I'm very much loving the whole heated seat option in the van.
Oh, the new van.
Yes,
the new van. Yeah,
I think the heated seat option is such
worn out already. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, on the subject of heated seats, and I'm sure that this gentleman has several of them in his yellow banana. Nev, hello.
Yes, I do. A standard fit. And
Are they?
Also the heated steering wheel as well.
Okay. You know that thing we were talking about earlier, by the way, Carlos? You're now so loud in comparison to everyone else. I can't hear it.
Oh, right, okay. We'll adjust that.
You know, a little bit of live editing. Bear with, children. Sorry, Nev, you were saying yes.
No, that's all right. No, but the heated steering wheel is great, but the only thing is makes the gear lever rather cold, so I need to find a way of heating that up as well.
Right. I mean, I sort of assumed that you were somebody who would have driving gloves. I don't know why.
I'm not quite
leather driving gloves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sheepskin.
I just had
sheepskin driving.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And moving on to our awesome fourth member of the hosting team is, of course, the man who wears a woolly hat and scarf and goggles when he goes flying. It's, of course, Armando.
Biggles. Sorry.
That's great. I was wondering where you were going with that, Carlos.
Yeah. As were we all, I'll be honest.
Hi, happy to be back for another week.
Yeah, good to have you back, Armando. Things are starting to get very, very busy for you right now, aren't they?
Yeah, like I mentioned last week, there's a lot of studying going on, lots of time management skills being employed, trying to figure out what to study, when to study, and then I think tomorrow morning is it's go time. So I go into training, head out to California, and start flying that beautiful machine.
Now, Nev, obviously, because work is back with a vengeance, it seems at the moment for you. I mean, I assume you had to redo your type rating on the banana, did you not?
Yeah, that's right. I've forgotten how to drive the thing. But yes, a mere 524 miles this week in the machine, which was great. And no, we are back. Not flying yet, but I think that will come next month, all being well. But no, we can go and see real customers again rather than doing Teams and Zoom meetings.
Oh, I say,
smashing!
What a treat.
Armando, I'm going to ask you a question, and it's one that's been on my mind for about a week or two now about this training you're going into. Obviously, we all left school a few years ago, didn't we? And college or whatever.
Where's he going with this, Nev?
Not as many from Armando, because he's obviously a lot younger than we all are. But is it hard to get back into that whole mindset of learning again?
Yes, and so I think I've mentioned it before. I was a pretty terrible student, like really, really bad. I did not have those study habits when I was a kid, really until my mid-20s, where I actually learned how to study. But anybody in aviation, whether you're a cabin crew or in the front end, it's just nonstop. You're always going for some kind of check, whether it's instrument recurrency, aircraft recurrency, you're getting another rating, another endorsement. You just never stop studying. So you just kind of figure out how the right amount of cramming to do with your schedules and continuing to fly. But I don't think we're the only ones. I think there's many professions like that. I think, Megan works in the healthcare industry, and there's always continuing education happening in the middle of your job and everything. So I think a lot of people are used to that, just always studying for something.
As if you need to study. You know all anyway.
Oh
no, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Hey, honestly. But so before we move on with the news, we are going to do our caption competition at the top of the show for a change this week. And for those of you who follow us on social media, such as Facebook, will know that we've started doing a little just for fun caption competition each week, where we read out the winners on the show, or not the winners, but anyone on the show, for the amusing captions that have been made on the picture. So this week's picture that Matt will pop up on the screen in the moment, I expect, features a rather interesting new Airbus concept aircraft that is going into production this week. And we had a few humorous captions left on our Facebook page. But so don't forget, if you are going to follow, or if you follow us on Facebook, don't forget to check out each week during the week for this.
So for those who are listening on the audio version of the show, obviously the picture is on our Facebook page, so you can see that. But just describe, for those who don't have time to check, just describe this picture to our audio listeners.
Well, it's definitely a wide body.
Right. In what sense? It's because it's a lot taller than it is wide. It's
wide body compared to its length, and we are talking about an airplane here, so it's, I don't know, what would you say? It's from, it's got the right wing span, the engines are in the correct place, it's got a single door, the whole aircraft is maybe 30 feet long and about 39 feet tall,
right?
with the rudder. It's just an A3. It's Google it. It's an Airbus A3. Yeah, there you go. So now you're going to have to go over to YouTube and look at the pictures.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I've got Nev. This is bringing back memories of my youth. I don't know about you, of the old cut and shuts.
Yes, actually, it looks a little bit like. I mean, it's an extreme version, but the A318 that BA used to operate out of London City Airport to JFK via Shannon. The A318 is a very short Airbus, and but it does look a little bit. I know, a very extreme version.
I was going to say,
but yeah, it did remind me a little bit of that, I must say.
Very good.
Actually,
okay.
Dirk in the chat room has said that it's a new 4-person Airbus business jet.
Right,
not a bad one. But we have had some captions left on our Facebook page, and we'll go through. We'll take one each, shall we, guys, for a change? And the first one comes to us from David, who says, "I shrank in the wash."
Right. Okay.
Nev, do you want to take the next one, Nev?
Yes. Laura's written in and she says, "You've seen our short haul service. Now introducing our short haul service."
Very good.
Armando.
Oh, this one's from Laura. "You've seen our short haul service." No, sorry. The new SafeJets fleet, combining the best bits of Al's A320 and Pip's Phenom.
That was from Steve, that one. And Matt, what's Glenn saying?
Glenn says, Airbus has unveiled a new BizJet. I think, with the 4 people, I think that's clearly a given.
John is going a bit kind of European for this one. He says, IKEA engineers go into aircraft flat pack builds. They had a few parts left over.
Right, yes.
So very good on that one. But thanks to everyone who's commented on that in the on the Facebook page. But we're going to put another one up next week, so keep your eyes peeled on there. And on the note of Facebook and YouTube and everything like that, we're going to say a quick hello to everyone in the YouTube chat room this evening. So we've got, let's have a look who we got in there this week.
Sorry, before you do that, is one of the things that Lee Davies is just saying in the chat room here. He's saying that A318 equals minibus, or as we like to refer to it, the baby bus.
Actually, that's what very often ATC at Heathrow used to refer to the A319 as the minibus, and the A318 as the baby bus. I think I'm right in saying. Adam will correct me, I'm sure, but I'm definitely certain I've heard that over the ATC in the past.
Oh, well, there we go. Indeed. Sorry. Anyway, Carlos, do carry on.
Anyway, so let's see who's in there. We've got Lee Davies, who was in there really early again this evening. So hello to you, Lee. We have got Richard Adams. We've got Lane Street. Obviously, got to have Lane in the chat room. We've got Auntie Liz. Hello to you, Liz. Hope you're well. Nick Codling is in there. Laura Davis is also joined us tonight. Just scrolling down, we've got On Wings and Rails. Hello to you. Dirk S, our main man Micah, is also in the chat room this evening. Masha's in the chat room. Hello to you, Masha. And we have got, let me scroll down. Who else do I see? Oh, Sturman. Hello to you, Sturman.
Captain Cruz has joined us as well.
Captain Cruz as well is in there as well. So welcome to you, and welcome to everyone who has joined us on this stream this evening. And don't forget, if you are listening to the audio version of the show and you want to find us on YouTube, just check us out at Plain Talking UK on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't already done it and you follow us on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page. And also, if you want to be notified when we go live, don't forget to click the bell icon, which is right next door, and you'll be notified when we go live and record new episodes like we are right now, because we'd love to have you in that chat room.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the chat room is where it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And shaping the conversation, literally, of how the show goes.
Oh, very much so. The chat room definitely shapes the conversation each week.
Yeah. Or am I stealing that from LBC? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Anyway, it's time to kick off this week, as we do, with some commercial news. So if everyone's ready.
Oh, yes.
Let's go. So kicking off this week's first news story, shocking headline. This comes from AJC.com. Never thought I'd read this, hey. China airport passes HARTSFIELD-JACKSON as the world's busiest in passengers. Now, I always thought that HARTSFIELD-JACKSON was like the busiest airport in the world. It is when I play our next plane, anyway. So as travel plummeted around the globe in 2020, an airport in China overtook HARTSFIELD-JACKSON International to become the world's busiest passenger airport in traffic. That title now belongs to Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport. Say that after a few whiskies. It's the first time in more than 2 decades the Atlanta airport didn't record the highest passenger count, according to preliminary World Airport Traffic Rankings released on Thursday. However, HARTSFIELD-JACKSON was the busiest airport as measured by flight count, taking that title back from Chicago O'Hare. For passenger counts, 7 of the 10 busiest airports in the world over the pandemic year of 2020 were in China. Statistics from the Airports Council International show that China staged a recovery earlier than the rest of the world in a vast country with a population of nearly 1.4 billion and has a substantial domestic travel market to draw on. Meanwhile, international travel has remained largely shut, as we all know, due to COVID-19. Feel free to drink. Guangzhou handled 43.8 million passengers in 2020. Blimey, wow. While HARTSFIELD-JACKSON handled 42.9 million, down from 110.5 million in 2019. Atlanta officials have long prized the world's busiest title, which HARTSFIELD-JACKSON has held since 1998 for passenger counts. So for flight counts, HARTSFIELD-JACKSON's 548,016 bested Chicago O'Hare's 538,211 last year. Atlanta had a 39.4% decline in flights, while Chicago O'Hare had a 41.5% decline in flight numbers. So, yeah, obviously this is your side of the world, Armando, and you'll probably best know if obviously these figures are true, which they obviously are, but I'm guessing things are slightly more quiet to your side of the pond.
Well, the numbers don't lie. So if Guangzhou Airport had the most number of passengers going through it, as the article said, certainly their recovery for the domestic market was a little bit faster than ours here in the United States. I was in Atlanta, so I was Atlanta based for the large part of 2020, and I saw this firsthand, where I think March, April of last year, it was dead. There was no air traffic coming in and out of there. And as I flew throughout the year, I could see it getting increasingly more or busier there in Atlanta, with the aircraft movements, as they said, actually were better than Chicago O'Hare. But hey, 2020 is one of those years that is the year that we're all just going to forget. So I'm sure, I have no doubt that in 2021, Atlanta Hartsfield will be back at the top of the list for passenger movements.
My mum had a similar procedure, by the way, which involved her 40th, where she went 38, 39, 40, 40, 39, 38. So I think she's in her mid-20s now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
See, 2020 is good for some things.
I think we should do the same thing. I think we should do, it's like, so we went sort of like, we went 2019 and then like, we'll perhaps start going backwards from now. So we're all getting younger.
I like it.
Yeah,
I'll just keep shaving my head. Nobody will be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, quite.
Now Nev needs to shave his head.
Oh dear.
Yes, well, at least I've had a haircut last week.
Yes.
It was long overdue.
The joys of the restrictions being lifted a little tiny bit here in the UK. Absolutely, very exciting.
I definitely look the oldest here. Anyway, moving on to the next one.
My beard is doing you some huge favours because there's a lot of white in it at the moment. So, and I'm fresh out of the Grecian 2000 or whatever it is that you do.
just for men.
Is anyway, it? Right, wasted on me then. Right, okay. Story number 2 is on the BusinessInsider.com, and the headline is: Video shows a woman dragged by hair and flight attendants punched during a mass brawl about overhead lockers. So we'll play the video because we do actually have it. I'll play the video for you in a moment. But footage captured on board, is it Tunis Air?
Yeah,
Tunis Air flight, which is refreshing, frankly, because usually it's Ryanair. So, wow. Oh, no, Jet 2, isn't it, is where the fights usually break out, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so Tunis Air flight shows a brawl involving numerous passengers shortly before a plane was due to take off. The incident took place on Saturday, April 10th, on the flight TU-216 flight from Istanbul Airport to Tunis International Airport. It is said to have been caused by a dispute over overhead lockers, Business News reported. Bickering turned into violence after passengers refused to pay extra fees to store their baggage, a witness told the website. In the video, several passengers can be heard screaming, pushing each other and attempting to hit people in the face. Well, it sounds like such fun. And other people on the plane can be heard shouting as the brawl gets progressively more violent. At one point, a man drags a woman by her hair and then punches her in the head. Flight attendants from Tunis Air can be seen trying to intervene to stop the chaos, but get caught up in the mayhem. Crew members were insulted and physically attacked by passengers, a Tunis Air spokesman told Business News. This fight caused a delay of 5 hours and financial losses were suffered by the company, the spokesman added. An investigation is ongoing, according to multiple reports. Now, this is one, because this is going to sound like a slightly odd question, but do aircraft have cameras on board?
No, just the passengers.
Not usually, no.
No, the trouble is, it's like one of these, because it'd be one of those situations, isn't it, where you want to sort of study the CCTV footage to find out exactly who started it, who was involved.
Well, you don't need it. There's 134 iPhones.
Well, that's true. But it just seems a little bit unfair that Tunis Air obviously would have been quite heavily penalised for late departures and all that kind of thing. I mean, my gut reaction is that the people who were involved in the fight should be the ones paying for that.
Oh, I'd imagine they whoever was involved in this probably paid fairly heavily for their actions after seeing what happened on this flight. I watched the video a couple of times and I just thought, wow, this is I've seen fight videos before on aircraft, but this is like beyond.
It's not much social distancing going on, is
No,
there?
I must say. Indeed, the video. There's a YouTube version of this video which we will make sure is included in the show notes for those who are listening on the audio version and would like to have it. But I mean, it's picking up pace, I think, is the best way to describe.
I mean, let's not forget this fight was over an overhead bin.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
but is it because somebody asked because it said in the story about people being asked to put stuff underneath? So the fight broke out because somebody was asked to put something underneath. I mean,
the fact that they at one point on the video, if you watch it, that a member of the cabin crew actually got punched
in the face. I think
that's when.
Whoa! My goodness me.
Yeah.
And the cabin crew there are trying to stop this gentleman who's pulling the lady by her hair. I mean, it's just horrendous, isn't it? It's not a. It's just awful, isn't it? It really is.
I think there's certainly some cultural dynamics at play here also
that
we're not used to seeing in the West. But this is, out of all of these that we've played out and shown the videos, this is probably one of the more violent.
Absolutely.
Is this still at the gate at the moment?
Yeah, this was still at the gate now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if you were the captain on this flight, Armando, I mean, I'm guessing you would have probably offloaded.
Deplane everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. Deplane everybody. And I don't know. I'm sure we could probably dig a little bit more. I don't know what they actually did with this, but at that point, my response would not be to bring law enforcement on board. It would just be to say, okay, everybody's getting off, and then take it out of the airplane and put everybody in the terminal where you have a little bit more room to move about and control the situation. But inside the airplane, it's very difficult for the cabin crew to move about, and get to the aggressors or really do anything. And they're not, most cabin crew are trained to deal with emergency situations, but they're certainly not going to get into the middle of a brawl like that.
No.
And risk getting hurt themselves. So you just kind of let it all play out. And usually, I think Captain Nick has talked about this. Usually when the captain gets out of the flight deck and they have their uniform and their hat on, they usually kind of puts a situation. It's like the dad coming into the room, and saying, okay.
Enough now, children.
John Hutchinson, our friend and former Concorde captain, said he had one situation where he had to get out of his seat and put his jacket and his hat on, and it did make a difference. But of course, these days, crew are encouraged, or flight crew at least, encouraged very much not to get out of their seats because, frankly speaking, they're not trained to deal with these situations. No. But the cabin crew are. Having said that, this has escalated to a point of absolutely horrific levels, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah, lots of comments in the chat room, actually, from some funny but some serious ones as well. So, yeah, Lee Davies says, think they were angry about the Football Soccer European Super League. Good one. Good one, Lee. Like that one.
Well, that's verging on being topical. Quick, put that in the show.
Rakon says, ERS would be a possible solution. Emergency relaxation spray.
Right. Okay. Like well, is there such a thing? Well,
Richard
chloroform,
says,
I suppose.
What? No cattle prods?
Yes. Cattle prods are clearly the answer. Yes.
It's not good. It's not a good situation to be in if you're crew, especially when, obviously, like you guys said, most crew these days are told not to get involved.
I like Masha's comment, actually, which is where she said that one more reason to go with the bald look, no hair pulling in a fight that way. I mean that's clearly a solution.
Hey, Armando, wade in. You'll be fine.
That's not how I'm going to get dragged down in a fight.
Do you know, Armando? I mean, you are. I think I speak for everyone here where I say you are officially like one of the nicest people I've ever met. But if I ever saw you in a fight, I know who my money would be on.
Oh God, no! I don't know how to fight. I'm an airplane nerd. I wouldn't survive a fight with a Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, just remind me how many years it was you were in the Air Force.
21, but it was the Air Force.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. So you could shoot them out of the sky, no problem. Easy peasy. Yeah.
We're a bit averse to conflict. We just send the officers off. Hey, you guys go take care of business. We're going to be right here by the coffee shop. Call when you're 20 minutes out.
Right. Okay. And on that bombshell.
So Nev, the next story is all about the fabulous iPhone.
It is. And speaking of phones, I'd just like to say that the video quality on that previous item I would describe as poor at best due to vertical video, poor colour balance and lack of picture.
Right, okay, duly noted. I'll try harder next week.
If you mind, just
sorry. Right, yes, I'll pass that on to our media team. Yeah.
Meanwhile, back on flightglobal.com, it says that investigators are recommending that the UK CAA require that passenger seat designs minimise the possibility of portable electronic devices being crushed after a fire incident on board a BA 787-9 operating into London Heathrow. But the Air Accident Investigation Branch acknowledges difficulties in eliminating entirely the risk of such events. There are currently no seat design requirements to prevent electronic devices becoming trapped in seats, it says. Manufacturers and regulators are aware of this issue, but it has proven challenging to find a workable solution. The European Union Aviation Safety Agency has taken action to derive new design criteria and practices, but as the UK is no longer an EASA member, a separate inquiry by the AAIB to the CAA is being made. The seat involved in the BA incident was designed around 10 years ago. The aircraft had been nearing top of descent, some 40 minutes from Heathrow, following a service from Miami on the 1st of October last year. After the passenger awoke and returned her flatbed seat to an upright position, she left for the washroom whilst a flight attendant stowed the bedding. The flight attendant noticed that the end of the plugged-in charging cable was tucked down the side of the seat, and shortly afterwards heard a hissing sound and saw grey smoke emanating from the seat as well as an orange glow. Never a good thing.
No.
Two cabin crew members, having pulled back seating padding, located a device trapped in the seat mechanism and used a BCF extinguisher on it, whilst a third attendant contacted the cockpit crew. The cabin crew attempted to remove the device, but it was jammed and there was very little heat coming from the device, said the inquiry. But given that the situation appeared under control, the pilots opted to continue to Heathrow, but requested firefighter attendance on landing. Investigators point out that BA's operation manual permits use of personal electronic devices throughout the flight, but they must not be charged whilst the passenger is sleeping and must be switched off and disconnected from seat power when not in use. The UK CAA's mandatory occurrence database listed 166 previous reports of devices trapped in passenger seats, with 42 resulting in fire or smoke over the past 5 years. Well, we all like a good lithium battery fire, don't we? And of course, we know with this battery technology, whilst this is highly reliable, if it does catch light, they're pretty difficult to put out.
Lane has a suggestion for us, by the way.
Good.
Here's a solution: keep track of your flipping phone.
Brilliant. Yeah. But I think that this is a very good point, though, because it is very easy in these seats, especially the lie flat ones on BA, to lose your phone, because there's not a lot of room and you're trying to cram a lot of stuff in. But this is going to be an ongoing problem, I think, definitely.
Yeah, Laura suggested the hissing sound means that it's working, apparently.
That's right.
Yeah, in response to Rycon's comment in the chat room as to why there's no safe box or handling equipment, there actually usually is. There's usually at least, and especially on an airliner this size, at least 2 thermal runaway bags that are big enough for a laptop to get thrown in. But the thing is, you got to fish it out of the seat as it's hissing and sparking at you like a cobra, and nobody wants to do that. And there's usually gloves too. They're just look like big oven mittens, but again, you got to fish it out of there first before the cushion catches fire or anything like that. But
I did actually. On a coach, believe it or not, I did have a similar incident once involving one of the battery packs. The recharge, that you can use to top it up. Yeah. And it was, I think it was like. The phone companies went through a phase where they used to give you like a battery pack, didn't they, for your phone? And I think this one in particular was an EE one. And to be fair, it hadn't even been trapped in anything. It was just literally present and on the coach. And then suddenly we could hear this. Well, it was the smell that gave it away first of all, because as anybody who's had that electrical smell is quite a unique smell, isn't it? thing. And we ended up just taking, in front of where we were parked, there was just like a concrete pad that we just basically sort of put it there and just let it burn. But yeah, that was quite scary.
Yeah, and as the article states, you would think they would be able to come up with some kind of seat design like you see on terrestrial public transport, like trains or anything like that, because they probably have the same problems.
Richard Adams in the chat room is saying to Nev, don't you have staff to proffer your phone in a silver tray when you're in seat 1A, Nev?
Absolutely. No, I think this was, again, it's to do with the cutbacks. It's they're all over the shop at the moment.
Quite. Yes. Okay. There we are. It's that's what we like here on the show, isn't it? We've always got our head firmly in the clouds, haven't we?
Before all us guys get stressed out, let's move on to the next story, Armando.
Okay, this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to me. This is a study the website is prestonjournal.co.uk, and there's a new study that warns that pilots could be underestimating the risk of flying while stressed. The findings contrast with guidance from flight safety authorities, which state that stress can compromise pilots' performance. Pilots on general aviation flights, the largest and most dangerous category of flight in the UK, they frequently fly for recreational or business purposes, and unlike commercial pilots, often fly alone. Risk perception and management are therefore key areas of research vital to safety improvement. A team of researchers from the university's Applied Psychology and Human Factors group, led by Dr. Amy Irwin, set out to examine the risk perception of general aviation pilots and how this impacts decision-making in relation to takeoff, specifically in deciding whether or not it's safe to take off. The team presented 101 pilots with a series of 12 takeoff scenarios across 4 categories: compromised performance, pilot stress, fatigue, or illness; environmental hazards, which are thunderstorms, ice, wind; faulty equipment, power, noise, airspeed indicators; and missing equipment, whether it's checklists, sunglasses, and seatbelts. Pilots were then asked if they would proceed in each scenario and explain their reasoning. So Dr. Irwin said the pilots' reasoning for their decisions suggests that although they were aware of the risks while flying, while ill or tired, the pilots considered flight to be a stress-relieving activity, and so they were less likely to cancel a flight based on being under stress. This is despite guidance from aviation regulatory bodies such as the FAA, indicating that stress can potentially compromise flight performance. General aviation pilots are generally safety conscious, but not all risks are considered equal. So it is important to highlight the potential impact of stress on flight safety going forward to encourage pilots to consider the risks of flying stressed. The more we know about how and why general aviation pilots make decisions and manage risk, the better able we are to develop interventions and training solutions to improve safety. Based on their research, it seems apparent that training on the impact of stress on cognition and performance would be useful, along with training in situation assessment and the validity of various risk management strategies. This particular study was published in the Journal of Aviation Psychology and Applied Human Factors, as I said before.
My advice for anyone who's stressed, by the way, is you need to A, watch this show, and B, always make sure that Lane Street is in the chat room, as something he's picked out from the details that you read out there was that 101 pilots. Was Cruella de Vil around? I mean, I think that's a good point.
Yep, and there's this other guy in the chat room that said pilot fatigue 101, right? Oh wait, that's Nev.
Yeah.
What's he doing over there?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so here's my take on this. So aviation, as we always say, is an inherently risky endeavor. No flight, whether everything is working correctly, is without risk. And much of aviation is about risk management. Now, I agree with them in that increasingly personal stressors are at the forefront of the risk management decision matrix. We are used to minimum equipment lists, to weather decisions. It just doesn't feel right, operational decisions. But more and more, we are educating pilots and air crews on the emotional side of flying. And I used to teach motorcycle classes, and it was the same there. It's a risky activity, and you may get in a fight at home, and a lot of people look at that activity as a way to relieve some stress. Go out and ride a motorcycle. Well, there are plenty of studies that show that it is almost as dangerous as riding drunk, or in this case, flying under some sort of impairment, because your reaction times aren't quite the same. Your mind's just not completely in it. And there are some aircraft out there that require constant attention, even in level cruise. And I think it's important to continue. And I think the FAA specifically has done a good job of highlighting this as a factor in your risk management process pre-flight, before you even leave the house.
Yeah. It's stress is one of those things, isn't it? That some levels of stress are good for you, aren't they? Because it sort of helps to keep you on your toes and stuff. But you do reach a point, don't you, where if you're not careful, once you've got that, you get that bad mix of fatigue and stress, and it's you become waspy and all sorts, don't you? You're sort of busy shouting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not the sort of environment you want to find yourself in when you're in the cockpit, is it?
That's it. And you're exactly right, Matt. Under one of the concepts of crew resource management is workload performance. And you need that little bit of stress to keep you on your toes. Especially, you're talking long haul flights, or you're talking a transit flight. In the case of the military, it was you take off, like you pre-plan the mission, you take off, you're on your game, and then you have 3 hours before you go into a tactical scenario. Those 3 hours are a danger period in which your workload performance is in a trough, and it could potentially be a factor in response, and your response to a challenge or a something going wrong.
Indeed.
Yes, don't be stressed when flying. That's the answer.
Absolutely. I mean, are you often stressed when you're flying your simulator, Carlos?
Depends if I forget something when I'm doing the pre-flight, which I have done in the past, but I'm getting better at that. The only mistake I did make, as I think I've said on the show before, was when I forgot to set the cabin pressure, the pressurization system.
Isn't your idea of pre-flight, Carlos, cracking open a tin of Brewdog or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Real question, Carlos, though. I know, John is not with us today to keep us on track on time. But real question, when you are stressed, do you go to the sim to fly to relieve some stress? And if so, why?
I'm going to actually say, if I am having a bit of a rubbish day,
a pooey day,
a pooey day, I must admit, when I put the sim together in here and go for a flight and do what I do with the list and stuff like that, it is a really good way of unwinding. It really does take away.
Clearly, this is where I'm going wrong, because when I'm really stressed out, the first thing I do is reach for a chocolate bar. Clearly, that's where I'm going wrong.
Yeah, perhaps you when I set the sim, I'm going to have the sim set up tomorrow if you want to pop around and have a quick flight, mate.
I'm not allowed, am I? The rules haven't lifted yet.
Yawn.
Oh. I could go, if you want to set it up in your garden, I'm up for it.
Yeah, I'll just go and get the 85-inch screen from work and bring that home.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't see a problem with that.
Anyway, no, but yes, Armando. Yeah, in answer your question, it's a really good stress relief. Funnily enough, doing that. So yeah.
There you go. Point. Now you just need a real airplane.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
If anyone's got a spare 737-800 lying around, just let me know.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Right, moving on to the next story. This next story is quite an interesting story, especially for someone who lives here in this house with me, and I'm not talking about Poppy. This one comes to us from the travelandleisure.com website. And for anyone who's got a spare $39,000 just laying down the back of the sofa in the front room, you can treat yourselves to this is just bizarre, a Louis Vuitton bag that is in the shape of an aircraft. So Louis Vuitton has long been synonymous with luxury travel thanks to its trunks, bags and carry-ons that have been by the side of the rich and famous on their private jets for decades. And now Virgil Abloh, the brand's men's creative director, is taking that travel meets luxury pairing to new heights with the airplane bag. So in January, Abloh unveiled the design of a new bag shaped like an aeroplane, outstretched with wings and even engines. The bag is finally hitting the shelves and going viral thanks not only to its design but also its $39,000 price tag. As many on social media pointed out, at that price you could choose to purchase an actual Cessna aircraft yourself and still have money left over. But why would you when you could own your own Louis Vuitton bag made with supple leather, its signature hardware and some hidden metal banding to keep the wings aloft? And when the bag is most certainly for show, it does still have some function, as it comes with a zipper opening so the wearer can store a few goodies in the cockpit. Guys.
I mean...
Well, I was trying to work out whether that was a BAE 146 or a C-130.
Only you.
I couldn't actually work out what it was.
C-130. Right.
I have to say, for someone who does love her Louis Vuitton stuff, I did show the picture to Gemma last night, and she said, if you ever brought me that, then the door is not far from here.
I mean, I think that's more the fact that if you ever bought that and you spent £39,000 on something like that, I think was more the reason why you got the door. But,
Lee Davis is saying actually in the chat room the A3 is smaller. So from the
yeah,
I had one in my shopping cart, but I had to take it out because I spent all my disposable income on the BA crockery set.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
No, that's a joke.
Nev is very very much keen on your first answer.
Lane loves the bag. He says expensive and ugly too.
Yeah, he's clearly very impressed, isn't he? Yeah.
But if you're listening to the audio show and you take yourselves over to our video stream on YouTube, you can see this picture on here. But Matt will probably put these in the show notes.
Yeah, the links will all be in the show notes.
But anyway, moving on to the next story. Nev, this is good. The Royals are going simming.
It is, and it's on the dailymail.co.uk website, and it says that the Duchess of Cambridge reconnected with her family's long history in aviation as she tried her hand on a flight simulator during a visit to a cadet centre whilst Prince William held her handbag. William, who learnt to fly with the RAF and piloted the service's search and rescue helicopters, joked, "This is going to be interesting," as he watched Kate, 39, take the controls of the light aircraft simulator during a visit in East London. The Prince said, "I'll hold the handbag." Kate's father, Michael, 71, worked as a commercial pilot and flight dispatcher for British Airways, whilst her mother, Carol, 66, was a BA flight attendant. Meanwhile, in a striking coincidence, the Duchess of Cambridge's parental grandfather, Peter, accompanied the Duke of Edinburgh during his royal flying tour of South America in 1962. The couple, who are officially still in royal mourning, have been given special permission by the Queen to visit the centre in honour of her husband, who served as Air Commodore-in-Chief of the Air Training Corps for 63 years. The Duke passed his military patronage to the Duchess of Cambridge in 2015. She is known as the Honorary Air Commandant because of her civilian background. On the command, 3 cheers for Her Royal Highness, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. The cadets gave a rousing hip hip hooray. William and Kate's visit was designed for them to hear more about how the Air Cadets support young people to develop vital life skills.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Established in 1941, the Air Cadets is a UK-wide cadet force with more than 32,000 members aged between 12 and 19 years old. Sponsored by the Royal Air Force, the Air Cadets provides hands-on experience that challenge and develop skills among young people to help them succeed, encourage in the spirit and adventure, and develop qualities of leadership and good citizenship. So 282 East Ham Squadron supports more than 60 cadets to gain skills and qualifications across a wide variety of different disciplines, from aviation, cyber and radio communications to adventure training, music, first aid and air experience flying, gliding and a space syllabus as well. Group Captain Al Lewis said of the visit that it was a really unique experience, and the cadets only found out an hour before they arrived. Given that we haven't had much activity over the last years, it was a real morale boost. He says it was wonderful for them as well to see the real legacy that of the Duke of Edinburgh had left to them. He spoke of the Duke, about whether he was still flying. He said he was very keen to try and keep his flying hours up. He clearly misses the flying profession. It was interesting to see as well the Duchess get in the simulator instead of him. He said she did very well. He said he was goading it all the way, saying, well, it's not as easy as it seems. It's a lovely video as well.
I bet she made it look really easy.
She had a real good go of it, bless her.
I'll tell you what, genuinely though, Carlos, having seen I've not seen it in the flesh yet, because obviously you purchased said simulator in lockdown, so I haven't had the pleasure yet. But essentially the only thing that looks different between what she was having a go at there was like a silly pod that they put round her that made it difficult for you to get in. So that's clearly what you need for your little office there, is some kind of 737 pod that I mean, you know someone in the trade. I mean, perhaps Andrew can help you with a
I was going to say, don't worry, he's working on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, absolutely. But I mean, what a great story. As I say, there's a lot of doom and gloom there, but it's nice to see sort of a nice story, as I say. And I feel that Kate will have absolutely nailed that and put everyone else to shame. That's what I reckon.
Did.
Yeah,
probably did.
Yeah.
Well, and in addition to that, too, you just can't say enough about the Air Cadet Corps, huh? Like, that was my favorite part when I would take the Osprey over to Riyadh or any of the air shows. You know, it was actually the Air Cadets that would always ask the most challenging questions.
Oh,
and
really?
They always seem to be the most interested and know the most about the aircraft, and they would ask. I love air shows and I love displaying our aircraft and our capabilities, but it was really having the same 90-second conversation about 300 times a day. So when you get a really smart air cadet that shows up, it's just fun to talk to them. And we would usually we wouldn't put everybody in the cockpit, in the pilot and co-pilot seats, but for them, we would usually say, hey, if you hang out a little bit longer, we'll put the velvet rope up and you guys can climb into the cockpit and take some pictures. So really the Air Cadets, what a great organization over there in the UK.
And your equivalent in the US, just refresh our memories.
We have sort of two. One is the Civil Air Patrol and the other one is Air Force Junior ROTC.
Nice.
There we go. Armando, you've got the last story, and this is quite interesting.
Yeah, when I first saw the story, the outside of this RV doesn't look like much, but the inside, you got to admit, he's put a lot of work into it. This story is from thedrive.com. Last summer, the demand for RV rentals saw an unprecedented 650% surge as Americans sought ways to vacation without crossing the paths of other people. Because the cause thereof still haunts us. Oh my gosh, who wrote this? Summer 2021 looks to be another RV season. Blah, blah, blah. So let's see. This RV listed on the Bay Area Craigslist is a 1979 Fleetwood Pace Arrow RV whose boxy body has been swapped for the sleek fuselage of a Convair 240. Which was made between 1947 and 1954. Its seller attributes the early 80s construction to a pair of men, one, Tony Tosta, whose name appears online only in association with this RV, and the other one, Jason von Strassenberg. According to the Santa Barbara Independent, von Strassenberg was one of the 4 pseudonyms used by a man named Roger Krona, who reportedly escaped a Michigan prison in 1972. By 1983, the two had met in Southern California. They found the fuselages of scrap aircraft, and this particular Convair Fleetwood, christened Andromeda, was the mothership of the fleet and was outfitted about as well as one could by amateur RV builders in the 1980s. Anyways, this article kind of goes on and on. You could go over to the drive, but I'll describe some of the pictures. It's actually really nice. Starting from the front to the back, they've largely maintained the original cockpit. Looks like the yokes are now the steering wheels. And then working its way back, it actually has a nice living room area, nice dining room area. It's got a full kitchen in it with oven and refrigerator and I think what you guys call a hob, right? So stove. Nice little sleeping area. And probably the best surprise is that it actually has a hidden jacuzzi.
What?
So underneath the floor, there are 4 panels that pop up and there's actually a jacuzzi hot tub in there. So you can, pull over to the side of the road in your Convair and just take a nice relaxing tub.
I mean, I'm sorry. I've just found the picture. Hang on, bear with. This is
Matt's going to put them up
for the benefit of the. I mean, wow.
Yeah, look at that.
That is.
Do you have to pull over then top it up and?
I mean, you'd have to take the bends fairly slowly, unless you drained.
Yeah, I think.
Drained it.
Well, I think that's it because I think that you must have to drain it in between. I'm rather enjoying the cabinets that are behind there with the speakers.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I quite like that old. They correct me if I'm wrong, Nev. They're the old type where you used to fill them with sand, aren't they? Those particular cabinets.
You could do, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Get that nice rich bass sound.
Yes,
indeed.
So there has been a lot of effort put into this. It's clearly, you could live in this, and I think you've probably got the better roads for this kind of vehicle in the US, Armando.
Oh yeah, and we have very little regulation, so you could drive this all over.
That's
probably
the thing
be a hit with the cops.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me, isn't it? Like, the rules here are really strict, aren't they, about what size vehicle you can get, and that we were looking at RVs before we bought the caravan actually, and one of the things that we were looking at was this amazing vehicle, and we almost bought it until when we looked closely that actually you needed a Category C license in order to be able to drive it, and it didn't look that much bigger than like an ordinary RV, but it was just like, oh wow, this looks amazing, and sort of nearly stuck. Fortunately, we got outbid. Otherwise, that could have been a very expensive issue, really. But
a couple of good points brought up by Laura Davis in the chat room. Says almost looks as good as the limousine. Remember, we had that story on.
Yeah.
There was a Learjet that had been turned into a limousine.
Yeah.
Laura also says on there she wonders if it's very heavy. Now, I looking at this, I reckon that does weigh a fair amount.
Yeah, I bet.
I drove a 42-foot, 30,000-pound RV when I lived in New Mexico, and I needed no special license or training to drive it on the roads out here.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. On Wings and Rails is suggesting that it's a proper reason to go live in the States. Very cool. I have to say, I'm pretty much with you on that one on Wings and Rails. That is one of the things that. Do you know that there's there's 2 things that I'm desperate to do actually sometime very soon. One is to go over to the States and visit Armando and Dr. Steph, because that's just going to be my highlight whenever I can do that at some point. And the other one is, and I know they always talk about this, don't they, the Route 66, where you hire an RV and do that seems to be some kind of, Armando's going to laugh at me now for that, isn't he? He's going to roll his eyes or something.
Okay, well, I hate to disappoint you, but Route 66 has largely just been paved over by Interstate 40, so it doesn't have the same appeal. However, there are some fantastic cross-country trips around here. I know we have the Great River Road. You can go from New Orleans out to San Diego. Yeah, there's some great. But Route 66, so where I used to live, funny enough, we're just talking about New Mexico. Tucumcari, New Mexico, was one of the stops on Route 66, and I would go ride my motorcycle up there, or sometimes I would fly up there from where I lived in Clovis, and you would find foreigners. I would meet a lot of people from actually Germany that would come over and rent a Harley, and they were riding across from Chicago to LA.
Yeah.
And And it's kind of disappointing.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh dear. Can I just need to clear something up here, by the way. My confession there. Lane has suggested, Matt in a jump plane. I want to make it perfectly clear, Lane. In fact, I'm going to look at the camera right now and I'm talking to you, Lane. That will never happen. Okay, that's the end of it.
On a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, but we will do it on Wednesday.
Unless we get Matt one of those famous pints of milk before he,
I ain't getting on no plane, fool.
If you jump out of a plane, Megan and I will jump out of a plane with you.
But
and I'll go as well.
That sounds like challenge accepted.
And Nev's gonna
film it for us because he's not stupid and he'll still be on the ground.
Yeah, that's good shout. Definitely.
Right,
Nev's going to jump out with his 4K camera, and
I can assure you that isn't going to happen. Nobody needs to worry about that. It's not going to happen.
Anyway, we're on that bombshell. That brings the commercial news to a close this week. Some good stories in there, guys. Well done. We've got a next part of the show coming up, which is the Plane Truths, which I know many people look forward to each week. And this week, Al, and dear, that's because I'm waiting for the next episode of Plane Safety to come out. But Pip's taking 3 hours to record 2 seconds of show, I think, or something like that. But anyway.
Anyway, back on task.
The next segment is the Plane Truths, where this week Captain Al and Matt are talking all about that important performance calculations.
Hello and welcome to the Plane Truth, and this week we're going to be talking about performance calculations. Joining me, as always, is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hi, Matt.
Right, okay, now this one's come in from a listener this week, so thank you to Nick for sending this in. Basically, the summary is, how would you go about performing takeoff calculations?
Okay, so this is a simple question with a very complicated and convoluted answer, which I'll try to split up and section it off in as much as I can. So we'll start with the very basics. When we are going to perform a takeoff, we need to be certain that the aeroplane will get airborne. So one of the things that we will do before we decide how much payload we can accept. So payload is the passengers, the bags, and any cargo. It's the stuff that we're being paid to carry, okay? We will work out how much payload we can carry. So how do we go about that? Well, obviously, we know which aeroplane we're in, so the performance data will be quite specific to that very individual airframe. We know where we're at, as in which airport, and then we can start to narrow it down to which runway, because obviously some airports might have short runways, long runways, and this, of course, is dependent on the weather conditions that prevail. So we will work out what the maximum payload is for that aircraft using that runway with the weather conditions that prevail, and quite significantly, whether the runway is wet, dry, covered in snow, covered in ice, etc., etc. So that's our payload, and that's the maximum amount of weight that we can get out of that airport. So when we've actually boarded all the passengers, and we've talked in a previous episode about weight and balance. So in light aircraft, you might look at actually weighing passengers, whereas on large aircraft, we use assumed weights. Now, the assumed weights are set by the authority, and some people will say, well, I'm a big chap. Okay, well, for every big chap, there's a little chap. So it kind of all average itself out. Okay. Now, big dividing line here. In Europe, most airlines will allow the crew to do their own performance calculations, or the airline will subcontract the performance out to a company and the pilots will cross-check it, double-check it. In the United States, they have an entirely different setup, so they have flight dispatchers, and it's the flight dispatchers who will do the performance calculations, or a separate department, but usually it's not the pilots. Horses for courses, you know, apples and pears, it doesn't really matter. Someone is doing the calculations. In days gone by, and indeed when I started flying, when Wilbur and Orville were still, you know, middle-aged, we used to do performance calculations with big tables. So you'd have a huge library on the aircraft. You'd say, okay, I'm at Manchester at runway 24, because don't forget, in these days, there wasn't a second runway. So it was runway 24. You'd find the runway 24 page. You'd go into the dry page or the wet page or the contaminated section. That's with snow and ice, etc. And you'd know the weight of the aircraft because you'd have the load sheet. You'd go in and you'd match it up with the temperature, and that would give you your performance speeds. Now, one of the things that we try to do on aircraft is we look after our engines because they're very, very expensive and they use lots of fuel. So in the same way as when you drive your car, when you're starting off driving away from stationary, you have the option, don't you? You can either gently accelerate or you can absolutely floor it.
I mean, the latter one is more exciting.
The latter one is more exciting, but this is aviation, so we try to keep excitement down to a minimum.
Fair enough, yes, yeah.
And we try to think safe option, okay?
Boring.
So what we will do is, based on the weight that we've got and the temperature, etc., runway conditions, blah, 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 we will come up with a set of speeds, so V1, our rotate speed, our V2 speed, and we will also come up with a temperature. It's an assumed temperature. In the Airbus world, we call it flex. I think Boeing call it D rate. It doesn't really matter. It's an assumed temperature. So basically, what we're telling the engines is that it's a lot hotter outside, so therefore they will produce less thrust because engines can't produce the same amount of thrust when it's hot. So we're giving the engines or the computers a false figure, so they produce less thrust, i.e., we're taking off with enough thrust to be safe, but we're not going full power. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. The whole thing about fooling the engines is just that it's just the way of doing it. So that's our performance calculation, and we would do that on a table. And then, as things like laptops and latterly tablets came to be quite sophisticated, clever, cheap, and robust, people started to look at this performance and went, hey, we can, calculate this electronically. And it was kind of worked out within Monarch Airlines that massive savings could be made by basically being more accurate with these calculations. Because when you're doing it manually by tables and charts, you're always going to err on the safe side because you're interpolating, and you might be interpolating between 4 different boxes. Unless you've got, an instant Excel spreadsheet and you're going to put all this data in to come with absolute values, you're going to basically look at it and go, well, okay, it's somewhere between, 52 and 56. So 52 is the safer figure. We'll go with 52. Now, it might be that if a computer did it, it came up with 54. So there's 2 degrees of temperature difference there. And what the vendors of these electronic performance packages came and said, well, for an airline of Monarch size, for every degree of flex that you save over the year, will save you about $500,000 US. So 2 degrees of flex, well, there's $1 million saved. And I'm minded of a very astute training captain who was from a part of Wales where arms are short and pockets are deep. And he said, all we need to do is just add 2 degrees manually and we'll share the $1 million then. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. The regulator needs to see a bit more evidence of this taking place on a more scientific way. But we had electronic performance, and therefore you put the data in. And the key thing then is that you independently, so each pilot has a tablet, you independently calculate the performance. You compare what you've got, and then you put it into the flight management system, and off you go. Now, like anything else in life, when we put stuff into computers, we can make mistakes. It's very easy to mistype a 3 for a 4 because they're next to each other on the keyboard, etc., etc. And as you know, Matt, because you're a computer guy, you'll be familiar with the old saying of rubbish in, rubbish out.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So long as the data fits within the very broad parameters, the iPad, the PC, whatever you're using, will go, well, that's what you've told me it is. That's good enough for me, and I'll spit you out this figure. Now, unlike when you were looking at charts and tables, you kind of had a bigger aspect to this. And my analogy for this is that most of us now navigate in our cars, trucks, buses using sat-nav.
Yeah.
And we just follow what it says. When we used to use road atlases, we had a much bigger picture. So you're of a similar generation to me. So if you had to drive from Bungay to Manchester, you have a pretty good idea as to how you're going to get to Manchester without consulting your sat-nav, don't you?
From
it
here,
might not be,
head north.
Well, there you go. It might not be as efficient as using your sat-nav, but you would get to Manchester. Yeah. And you would have a good idea if your sat-nav started to say, turn south, that something has gone wrong, and you might have the wrong Manchester in your sat-nav.
Yeah. But
for those people who don't have that kind of big picture, this has been the big problem. So where people have made data entry errors, they've either been in the preliminary calculations on their devices or then putting them into their FMS. And again, so long as the aeroplane goes, well, it looks okay to me. You've not told me that it's 140 degrees centigrade outside. You've told me, that it's 55. That's good enough, because it could be. So these are where things go wrong, because we have an inherent trust of anything that a computer does. Now, the computer will only do what it's told to do. So if we put rubbish in, we'll get rubbish out. So as an industry, we've now kind of developed this regime where we've identified that where people are using electronic performance, errors can take place with incorrect data. Where you're using drop-down boxes and you've selected, dry instead of wet runway, these sorts of things. If they don't get picked up, then you'll get completely erroneous performance data, which if you then go and fly, you might find that you're not flying as soon as you should be, and then you might have a very extended takeoff roll, and you just might scrape the hedge or fence at the end of the runway. So what we do now is we have a rigorous procedure whereby everything is independently cross-checked. And as an industry, we're starting to see better adherence to these practices, and the incidents are becoming less. But like anything else, with pressures of time and, confusion, there's been cases where performance has been done for the full length of the runway because they thought that they'd selected the correct length of runway on the drop-down box, but aircraft have then departed, a third of the way down the runway, because that's what they thought they'd done the performance for, but in fact they did it for a lot longer runway. So we're trying as an industry to really nail the procedures and teach discipline, because as I say to guys who are under my wing for training, this is one of the things that will kill you if you get wrong. And you've got all the time in the world on the ground to get this right. Sometimes we have to deal with problems in the air where we can't just stop the clock and say, okay, we're going to take 5 minutes to do this. Well, you can't in the air, but on the ground you can. That's kind of aircraft performance. There are a lot of environmental aspects to it. So when we have low pressure systems, so stormy weather in the UK, lots of rain, lots of wet runways, low pressure, strong winds, sometimes in the wrong direction, they can all affect our performance. So the weight of the aeroplane, the environmental conditions, the runway length and the runway state are the key elements to that. So hopefully that's answered the question in as much as I can. I'm only a pilot at the end of the day, not a performance engineer.
Not quite. As always, many thanks, Captain Al.
It's a pleasure.
Well, welcome to our London studios. Welcome to the A320 Lounge webinar tech presentation, obviously for the 320 series.
Welcome to the A320 and 737 Lounge, bringing technical refresher courses directly to you. Using our cutting-edge broadcasting facilities, enjoy a fully interactive technical refresher course from the comfort of your own home. All of our webinars are live and you can ask your instructor a question at any point during the day. All of our instructors are highly experienced and can help you. No more expensive nights away from home, no new software required, just an internet connection. Courses are run at regular intervals, so check out A320 Lounge and 737lounge.com for more details.
Don't forget, if you enjoy the plane truths like we all do with Al and Matt, don't forget you can catch all the other plane truths that have been on previous on our YouTube page. You can watch them on there.
And in fact, there are a couple of exclusive ones as well that haven't been included with our own show when it's just been a little bit too busy. But they're all there. And also, if anybody's interested and they want to listen to it in audio form, there is a podcast that you can download of all of the plane truths too. It is currently up to date as well. So there you go.
Ooh, exciting. So thanks for that then, guys. That was brilliant. So we are going to move on to the next part of the show where we hand things over to Armando.
Yeah, guys, despite our best efforts and even without John to keep us on track, we actually have enough time for military. So, Matt, if you're ready, hit the button. Okay, this particular event has already made its way all the way through the internet to the end and is already coming back the other way. But this is about that TBM Avenger that ditched just off the beach at the Cocoa Beach Air Show. And I chose an article from the aviationist.com that actually focuses on the recovery efforts and the future of this aircraft. So like I just said, the video of the Valiant Air Command's Grumman TBM Avenger ditching at the Cocoa Beach Air Show has gone viral around the world. And now the questions about the future of the aircraft and the identity of the pilot who skillfully landed the plane in the water are starting to circulate. So the official investigation will likely determine the cause of the incident, and it appears that an engine problem may be a contributing factor, according to Cocoa Beach Air Show spokesperson Chris Donato. He said that the only person on board was the pilot. He realized that the plane was having engine problems. He initially tried to make it to the nearby Patrick Space Force Base, where the air show was being held. Ultimately, the pilot changed his mind and decided to make a water landing in order to avoid going over buildings and Florida State Road A1A. The pilot of the TBM Avenger was taken to a local hospital where he was released without serious injuries, according to reports. Many social media posts, especially within the aviation community, praised the pilot's airmanship during the incident and remarked about his ability to precisely ditch the aircraft without hitting spectators. But now the question for airshow fans, warbird lovers, and the owners of the Avenger is, will she fly again? The best answer we know right now is hopefully. So the photos of the aircraft being pulled up onto the beach show damage that includes the bent propeller blades, missing fuselage panels, and damage to the wings, flight control surfaces. What may be less conspicuous but potentially more significant is any internal structural damage to the airframe. Collisions with water can often produce a surprising amount of force and structural damage. However, the Grumman TBM Avenger is an exceptionally rugged aircraft, evidence of which can be found with a number of aircraft that remain flying today and the service life of the planes after their retirement from military service. During World War II, the TBM Avenger earned a reputation for being able to withstand significant battle damage and bring its crews back to their aircraft carriers safely. Whether the TBM can stand up as well to FAA accident investigators and airframe inspectors could be another story. The factor that could ultimately decide the future of the plane, originally built in 1945, is money. If costs of returning the aircraft to flying status exceed what its operators, which are the Valiant Air Command, feel is appropriate, it's possible that the plane may only be restored to a static display condition. That determination will be made likely once a detailed survey of the damage sustained in the incident is completed. So in the meantime, photographer Matt Williams was kind enough to send these photos of the TBM Avenger that Matt just put up on the YouTube feed, being pulled from the sea. The rugged wing folding apparatus of the aircraft still enabled the wings to be swung back against the fuselage as it does on the aircraft carrier, in order to make transporting the aircraft easier. It ended up on a flatbed truck there. You guys can go over to Juan Brown's or the Blancolirio channel. He has a pretty thorough explanation of the salvage plans and how they wanted to float the aircraft out to sea and bring it around the jetty to enable the recovery. But the local authorities, the Coast Guard, decided that that was not the best avenue for both environmental concerns as well as just the sheer logistics of it. So what they ended up doing is just attaching a cable to the tail hook or somewhere on the aft of the fuselage. They drug it up onto the beach. They probably damaged the aircraft a little bit more in doing so. You can see there on the pictures there on YouTube. And by all accounts, the left wing actually filled with sand when it was lying there on the beach. And probably the recovery of this aircraft out of the water caused more damage than actually ditching
the actual incident.
Yeah, but
not
there
ideal,
you go.
is
So
it?
we'll stand by to hear what happens with this aircraft. And I on the military news, every week I'm looking through some of the warbird journals to see if there's any notable news. That's how I get some of the EAA and the B-29 news and things like that. But we'll follow this. I'll follow this and see. Update you guys on recovery efforts.
I love how the aviation community went down the completely correct response, which was to praise the pilot for making sure that that it sort of landed in the water rather than going anywhere near people and all that kind of thing. I mean, that's one of the things that I never really understood why they couldn't make the air shows here in Lowestoft and Yarmouth work, Carlos, because it just seemed to make so much sense doing an air show over the water.
Yeah,
it just seems
with the size of the beaches that we have here on the East Coast.
Yeah, they're huge.
Loads
aren't
of
they?
room.
You can get
Loads
hundreds of thousands of people. Well, in fact, the Lowestoft Air Show especially, there'd be hundreds of thousands of people on the beach.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's the joys of red tape and all that kind of thing. Suddenly, what with insurances and things like that, these events could no longer be sort of sustained unless somebody was paying for them, which is just such a shame, isn't it?
But it's I agree with Laura. Sad to see this one end up in the drink. Yeah, it was horrible when I saw this story because these aircraft there's so much time and effort put into the restoration and the upkeep of these aircraft, and to see one of these go into the sea like this, and obviously as has been pointed out in the chat room by quite a few people, salt water and aircraft don't go well together.
No, and Richard Adams saying so many media reported a crash rather than a great ditching, which I think is a great way of putting it, isn't it? Actually,
yeah, and the inside of all the surfaces on most aircraft actually zinc chromate, so it protects against corrosion. But like the Juan Brown said in his channel, it's designed against spray, not sitting in the water for a couple of days.
Indeed.
I agree with everybody else. I think the pilot did a fantastic job. Sure, there were some heads bobbing in the water. We don't know what's going through his head at the time, but I saw one great meme that says there's being a cool pilot, and then there's being cool enough to actually rescue your headset out of the airplane as you're getting out. So, you could see he had plenty of time while it was floating to make sure everything was secured, everything was shut off. He took his headset out of the seat and then just kind of climbed out
and off he went. Had a little swim. Yeah, I think we'll finish the comment on this story from On Wings and Rails with the perfect comment, really, that thankfully everyone is safe, and I think that's the most important thing.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next story from the UKAviation.news, and this one broke early this week. Fantastic story, and I must say it made for very interesting viewing here in the UK. So this one that was also sent to us on WhatsApp, our WhatsApp number by Andrew Hall, and also was emailed into us by Richard Adams.
Yes.
So USAF Osprey. rips up hospital helicopter pad during training. So a US Air Force CV-22 Osprey has been filmed redesigning a landing pad used by the air ambulance at Addenbrooke's Hospital here in Cambridge. The aircraft was understood to have been undertaking medical transfer training when the incident occurred. The CV-22 Osprey is part plane, as we all know, and part helicopter thanks to its engine vectoring, allowing it to land like a helicopter but cruise like a fixed-wing aircraft. But its massive propellers were way too much for the matting that covers the helipad, through which was sent flying when the Osprey took off after landing. And the video was posted on YouTube by Trail Spotter that shows the whole incident. And Matt is currently playing that out for you on YouTube at the moment for you guys watching. But yeah, I mean, having seen these flying locally, you can't obviously miss them for the sound. And I think pretty much we all can agree that the prop wash from these, or the downdraft from these, is probably substantially more than an EC-135 Eurocopter, the type used for.
Do you think?
Yeah. But,
yeah, I don't know if you guys want my opinion on this or not.
I would love your opinion, but
I would really love your opinion on this, Armando.
All right. Well, first of all, I've actually flown that airplane 0053. I don't know how many hours I have in it, but I've actually flown that particular airplane. And so there's a lot that happens before this training exercise ever took place. So usually what happens is there is a team that just drives out, in this case from Mildenhall over to Addenbrooke. And
because of course it's not far, is it?
No, it's only a 30-minute drive or so.
Yeah.
We don't get the chance to land at civilian hospitals very often. And I guarantee you that this team went out and they surveyed this landing zone. And they probably surveyed that fence that you can see on the video, the lights. There's a reason that it didn't land on the pad. So it was probably too small. So you might have taken out a couple lights or anything, or the material itself probably couldn't hold the weight of a CV-22. So they instead decided to land on the grass just off the temporary landing pad there. Now, they probably didn't have the tools to evaluate how that pad was secured to the ground. So it was, I mean, after so many regular helicopter landings on and off that pad,
my God.
they probably would have never even thought that it was going to lift up like that, because that's outside of the survey, the traditional survey of the landing zone. They would have probably assumed that it's secured properly. So I don't know. This is could have resulted in a serious mishap had one of those mats or temporary panels gone into the rotors, but the downwash or the rotor wash kind of distributed all those mats down and away from the aircraft. So I guarantee you they're out there. Man, I even saw some comments on the internet saying, the crew should go out there and fix it. Relax, people. Like, I guarantee you the United States Air Force is talking with it, yes. is talking to the people at Addenbrooke, and they probably have a new pad that's made out of concrete and even better, already on the way. So
absolutely, yeah. Although Lee Davis makes an excellent point in the chat room here. The good news is there's no cobwebs anywhere anymore, which I think is a very important thing. Yeah, it's again though. Rakon is actually saying like a good point. Is not the most solid way to build a helipad. I guess it was a cheap way of building a helipad, perhaps. I don't know. It's.
It certainly looked temporary to me.
Yeah.
And there is a great comment in the chat room from main man Micah, which is it's not necessarily just the rotor wash, it's the exhaust. The exhaust of the engine is so close to the ground that it may have caught just under the lip. So it's probably a combination of the two things. And and that's what probably caused this. But yeah, we have, let's just say, we've sparked quite a few fires in our history of flying the CV-22.
Yeah.
Now they redesigned the exhaust system a couple years after it was in service to deflect some of that, but especially the first exhaust design was notorious for sparking some brush fires. And and the sheer amount of heat, the heat itself could have, because of that engine exhaust, could have weakened either adhesives or some of the materials that were holding that pad down to the ground.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, many variables in there. I mean, as I say, again, thankfully nobody was hurt and all that kind of thing, as I say, and I'm sure Adam Brooks will have a far more suitable pad available to them very soon. Can I just say, I'm just going to say this, and Armando's going to tell me off for this, I know, but the very moment the words fell out of his mouth of, I've actually flown that particular aircraft, is just the coolest.
It seems to have just gone unnoticed, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's just like.
Did you hear that, people?
Yeah.
Armando has flown that exact
aircraft. That's just so. I mean,
aircraft.
Sorry, the sad human being in me is a little bit overexcited that we're covering a story that somebody on the team can actually comment about with some authority.
I know. Brilliant.
Time and place.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
The model that I have behind me of the CV-22 was actually 0046, which is a sister ship to that one, which was my favorite one because we took that all over Africa, and it was that was a fun airplane. It was a solid airplane to fly. So.
Yeah. In fact, can we indulge on Wings and Rails, because they're new to the chat room here. What is it like to fly an Osprey? Go on.
Do you know what I'm going to do right now? Is I'm going to plug another podcast. So
what? Hang on.
How very dare you?
Cover your ears, everyone.
Go over to the Airplane Geeks. Micah, help me out here. I think it was episode 528 or something like that. Micah, I'm sure Micah's doing his research right now. But I did a pretty good, probably a 30-minute chat with them about the Osprey.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's fair enough. I mean,
Laura Davies has made a very good point, Matt, in the chat room.
I know, absolutely. He's just saying, "What? Hang on a minute. You mean there are other podcasts?" I know. There's quite a big one following us if we don't hurry up. Actually.
Anyway, Nev. What have the Chinese been doing?
Well, there's a bit naughty, I think, because it says. In Taipei, 9 Chinese military planes entered Taiwan's air defense identification zone, known as ADIZ, on Tuesday, April 20th, marking the 17th intrusion this month. 5 People's Liberation Army Air Force Shenyang J-16 fighter jets, 2 Shanxi Y-8 anti-submarine warfare planes, and 1 Y-8 electronic warfare plane and 1 Y-8 reconnaissance plane flew into the southwest corner of Taiwan's ADIZ. In response, Taiwan sent aircraft, broadcast radio warnings, and deployed air defense missile systems to track these planes. Since September of last year, Beijing has stepped up its grey zone tactics by regularly sending planes into Taiwan's ADIZ, with most instances taking place in the southwest corner of the zone. Initially, these intrusions were usually carried out by 1 to 3 slow-flying turboprops. However, over the last month, China has begun sending larger incursions, including fighter jets, J-10s and J-16s, into the identification zone. And ADIZ is an area that extends beyond a country's airspace, where air traffic controllers ask incoming aircraft to identify themselves. Grey zone tactics are defined as an effort or series of efforts beyond steady state deterrence and assurance that attempts to achieve one's security objectives without resort to direct and sizable use of force. That is an incredible statement, I have to say, and very difficult to read. Well, according to data, Chinese planes were tracked in Taiwan's identification zone 18 times in March, 17 times in February, and 27 times in January, whilst last year they were observed 19 times in December, 22 times in November and 22 times in October, including a drone on October the 22nd. So they're clearly wanting to make their presence felt, aren't they?
Yes, flirting with the airspace, shall we say.
Yes.
I usually stay away from these sort of incursion type stories and these, spy versus spy reaction stories, but I included this one this week just because it's so significant. I mean, 18, 20 times, 27 times in January, crossing over somebody's internationally recognized border, and then they're increasing the firepower of aircraft. Firepower? I don't know if that's a thing. That they've taken it from transports and reconnaissance aircraft to some fighter aircraft. So it's usually indicative of just kind of testing the waters, and it's just something that the world is going to have to monitor and see if it increases at all.
I mean, I can't help but feel a little bit worried by that, as you say, because it's not an isolated sort of flirting of the borders, is it?
No, and I don't think anybody thinks that there's going to be a large-scale conflict between China and Taiwan.
Okay, good.
But as far as regional, it just affects regional stability, and some of the partner nations that are involved in this is, it could affect them, and just it's just such a weird time already with the pandemic and things going on that sometimes you add more kindling in there to potentially create a big fire. So
Dirk S is saying that, does Taiwan have some kind of royalty program for breaching the ADIS? I mean, it's
royalties. How? Royalties, like I get royalties every time we play out in a previous episode.
Yeah, right.
I think Nev's got seniority over me, so how much does the royalties pay you?
I'm still waiting for the check.
I'll tell you what. We'll start paying royalties for repeat fees as soon as I get my royalty check for the Family Guy, ladies and gentlemen, family show, not Family Guy. That's something else altogether.
Oh boy, that's a TV show here in the US. So.
Here, but bear with me. Sorry, in my defence, I've been up since about 4 o'clock this morning because Mum went into hospital this morning. So, in my defence. Okay, good, right. I've forgotten what we were doing now.
Armando,
what is this? What is this? Play Talking UK, right?
You have got
Park Radio.
Story.
No, sorry. Where are we?
Well, I did my best to give Nev as many foreign words as I could, but I'll try to take some on here too. So this is from theaviationist.com. The United States Air Force deploys a major fighter component to Poland. So 20 F-15s and 4 F-16s belonging to the U.S. Air Force deployed to Poland on April 19th of this year. 24 USAF fighters arrived at Lask and Krzyny air bases, where they will operate within the framework of an agile combat employment exercise during the Aviation Detachment Rotation, or AVROT 21-2. That 21-2 is just the exercise designator. It's just fiscal year 21. But the F-15s, both E and C models, come from RAF Lakenheath, belonging to the 48th Fighter Wing, while the F-16s are assigned to the 480th Fighter Squadron at Spangdahlem Air Force Base in Germany, Air Base. C-130J Super Hercules, assigned to the 37th Airlift Squadron from Ramstein Air Base in Germany, are also supporting AVROT 21-2. While the F-15Cs and F-16s went to Krzyny, the F-15Es landed at Lask, and the C-130 will operate out of Chèvre Air Base in Belgium to disperse, organize, and generate airlift for the ACE event. So the USAF jets will be involved in interoperability, joint procedures, and mission tactics training with the Polish 2nd Tactical Aviation Wing and the Polish Vipers. 2 sorties a day, or 2 flights a day, are planned. The operations could involve also the Polish Fulcrums. The Polska Zbroja outlet reports this is not the first ever visit of U.S. F-15s to Poland. In 2019, pre-pandemic, the F-15 Strike Eagles from the 4th Fighter Wing out of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina temporarily deployed to Spangdahlem, landed at Powidz Air Base as part of a rapid forge exercise. And then dealing with the Vipers in the same period, Spangdalam's F-16s deployed to Krzyny for bilateral training with the Polish Air Force as part of AVROT's 19-2s back in 2019. So there you go. This article goes on to talk about why they're doing this, but I've said it before. It's super important for us to. It's funny. It's not hypocrisy, because I just talked about you don't usually get into other air forces going into other countries.
Careful.
But I know, right? What are you going to do? In this case, in this training exercise, I think it's important for us to train with our European Security Initiative partners, such as Poland, to make sure that should the day ever come where Russia starts doing the same things as China and kind of testing the boundaries in the waters, that we're able to talk to each other and able to fly with each other without trading paint, which is always a bad thing.
Going back to my earlier, shall we say, incursion, as we're on that subject, a couple of suggestions on the Family Guy front. I've got to be Peter Griffin, obviously. Armando, they're suggesting that you should be Stewie, which I think is a surprise. Carlos, you get to be Brian. Nev, I think this is a good choice, actually. Mayor West. I think that's
I'm going to have to look up that program.
Oh yeah,
I've not seen it.
Have you not? Oh, Nev, it's a real treat. Basically, Mayor West is played by Adam West out of Batman. And it's just absolutely brilliant. It's wrong on so many levels, but it is an awful lot of fun. I think I quite like that. Yes. Do you agree with that, Armando? No.
Sure, but I was hoping to be Meg.
You were hoping to be Meg. What, like the outcast? Nobody likes you. Yeah. Right. God, you're always championing the underdog. Oh. Does anybody else find it exhausting?
That's a great T-shirt. Champion the underdog.
Absolutely. No, honestly, he's so positive. It's exhausting, isn't it? Sorry, I'll go and have. Sorry, we're nearing the end. I'll go and have a lie down in a darkened room soon. It's fine.
So we've got one nice sort of last story.
Oh yes,
actually, really for the military this week. This one comes to us from the Pontefract and Castleford Express.co.uk.
I beg your pardon?
I know. Say that after
I'm a subscriber.
Are you? Right.
And
good news.
And this is nice story to end on. Jacob, it says here, Jacob the pilot Newson, who was 7 years old, takes to the skies for his first flying lessons. So Dad Andrew, who has a fear of flying, sat behind as Jacob took the controls of the Piper PA-28 Cherokee during a flight out of White Waltham Airfield under the guidance of instructor Mark Green. Andrew, who is an emergency medical technician for the Yorkshire Air Ambulance Service, said the moment was bittersweet, as it was Mum, Andrea, who had planned to chaperone their son. Unfortunately, Andrea died from breast cancer in December last year at age just 49. But Andrew said that she was always going to do it, but unfortunately she passed away at Christmas. And seeing how excited Jacob was helped me, and being so determined to get some footage of him and photos of him in the aircraft helped distract him from looking out the window. Under the watchful eye of Mark Green, Jacob, who has been obsessed with flying since he was a toddler, was able to take control of the plane for roughly 10 seconds when they were at about 3,000 feet. Andrew said the highlight was when Jacob took the controls of the aircraft, and effectively he was in control of the aircraft, which was amazing. I think at 7 years old, that would definitely be a highlight of any 7-year-old's life. He said he was engrossed with the whole thing. He loved being up in the air, and since Andrea's passing just before Christmas, Jacob has been fundraising for the St Gemma's Hospice in Leeds in memory of his beautiful mother. This summer, Jacob is also planning to climb the 3 highest mountains in Yorkshire in 3 days, wearing his RAF flying suit alongside Andrew. Jacob has already raised over £22,000 through his Just Giving page for the charity, but hopes to raise £30,000, which will be enough to pay for a palliative care nurse for 12 months. Andrew said the hospice is over the moon with how much they've already raised, but asked him if there was any specific amount they said, and 30,000 5,000 will be enough to pay for one nurse for a whole year. So on the Just Giving page, Jacob explained why it was so important to raise the money, and he explains about his mother passing away. But thankfully, the St Gemma's Hospice supported them all through the process. And you can obviously find out to support Jacob and his effort for St Gemma's Hospice by visiting his Just Giving page. We'll put the show notes to this story, or the link to the story in the show notes so you can see on here. But what a great little story. And obviously inspiring someone at that age, I think, Armando, is probably, giving a 7-year-old the chance to fly a light aircraft. He's probably going to end up... joining the ATC or becoming a pilot. What do you think?
One can only hope. And and you have to say he looks very smart there in his uniform. He actually wears it wears it better than most people in the actual Air Force. Just a great little story. And the video is great. The pilot put him in the left seat, so even better. Looks like a Piper, Archer, a Cherokee, something like that. But he got to fly it from the left seat, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, you've obviously been taking up your family flying with you, haven't you, Armando, just recently and stuff. But how does Maddie enjoy the flying side of things now? She's been up a few times with you.
Oh, she loves it, and she's fearless. She once we get up to altitude, it was funny because much like this video with Jacob, Megan was in the back seat filming it, and you can see she's just fearless. She took the controls of the airplanes, and I told her to go left, and she went left, and then I told her to go right, and she went right, and she was surprised at how responsive the aircraft is. Nobody ever said that about a Cessna, but to a 6-year-old it is. And I just love their ability to just get focused on something. All the kids, right? So not just Maddie, but all of the Civil Air Patrol cadets, the air cadets, here in the U.S. that I get to fly with, they're just amazing kids and so smart. So much smarter than I ever was.
So you think now, Armando, that when you ask her that question, what do you want to do when you leave school?
He's praying it's not pilot.
Oh, I hope it's not pilot.
Just because of the costs involved.
We want her to go do something. Well, Megan was talking about it in the Women in Aviation episode. We will support her in whatever it is that she wants to do. I secretly hope that she ends up flying somehow, but she can certainly do that as a private pilot if she goes off to pursue something else.
I think you undersell some of this though sometimes, because I do think that fearlessness comes very much from the parents, as genuinely, because I think it's like you sort of underestimate the how people sort of see, like, Armando, he flies aeroplanes, and I dare say that daughter is exactly that same sort of thing. So it's like, it must be cool because daddy does it. Do you know what I mean? That's where the lack of fear comes from, is because actually, well, dad used to fly these things, for like, I mean, I'm probably applying too much thought process to it, but it's just like dad does that. That's cool. So that's nothing to be scared of.
Nev can chime in on this. I think any parent, it's what you normalize in the household and in your lives, and what how you treat challenges. And there's some life lessons to be learned, whether it's soccer camp or flying an airplane, about tackling something that you're uncomfortable in, and how do you respond to those things. But I don't know, Nev.
I think you're right. And also, it's quite often the case that people's children sometimes follow their parents into the same kind of career in life. There are many examples of it in aviation and in all walks of life as well. But I think introducing someone to flying at this kind of age is really, really interesting. And again, because we're not allowed to be in the jump seat anymore on commercial airliners, certainly when they're flying, again, we've lost all of that enthusiasm which so many kids got, and I certainly got that when I was privileged to have, I think probably 5 or 6 jump seat rides back in the day when you could. And without that now, GA is a good way of experiencing that, especially as you're handling the controls under the supervision of somebody else. Yeah.
Actually, Nev, you recently became a grandparent, obviously with your grandchild. Are you going to install the kind of the aviation and BA ways with
and dad's jokes, maybe?
Yeah,
dad jokes, absolutely. I mean, that's a given, surely.
Well, yeah. Well, I hope that BA is. I'm not going to say still around, but I hope that they will be back to normal operations
by the time they're able to enjoy it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it would be quite interesting to see what happens. I know his dad. My son David is quite keen as well, so let's see. Let's see how it goes.
Lee Davis has offered in the chat room here, by the way, saying, "Megan, Dad, can I join PT UK?" Armando, oh no, we don't want that.
Jeez, can you imagine PT UK 10 years from now?
We won't be in charge anymore.
Yeah, it'll be a mass franchise or something by then. It'll be we'll all be retiring on the profits.
Then Nev will finally get his royalty check.
Absolutely, finally after all these years. Yeah, he's in it for the long haul, bless him.
Richard Adams, just before we move on, Richard Adams just says, Nev, bet those grandchildren are signed up to the BA Air Miles scheme.
I must find out what the age restriction is, because with BA you've got the sort of the family and not the friends, but the family part of it, so you can actually combine Avios points. So I must find out what the age limit is for that. I'll tell you next week when I found out.
Nice. Laura, that's awesome. P2K TNG, the next generation.
Oh, I say, yes. Why have I just got the Star Trek theme in my head now?
I know, that's all I can think about now is Picard, Jean-Luc Picard.
Indeed. Oh, dear. Well, anyway, that's it.
Yes, I suppose we better just do some social media stuff first before we finish. So, Nev, how about you take the social media links for this week?
Yes, very kind of you. Well, of course, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Just search social media for Plane Talking UK. Our WhatsApp number is +44 757 22499166. That's +44 757 22499166. You can email the show at podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and our website is www.planetalkinguk.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. And you can go to www.youtube.com/Plane Talking UK. And of course, if you are an Amazon shopper, you can click on the link on our website every time you do your Amazon shopping. We get paid a small referral fee, and you can also become a Patreon as well, and the details of that are on our website.
Absolutely.
Yes, don't forget that WhatsApp number, guys and girls, because we need some fresh pictures to bung on these green screens behind us here, so you can send them into that WhatsApp number, and me and Matt can have a different picture, and Nev as well can have a different picture behind him on his green screen.
Absolutely.
So we're going to say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Thank you, everyone, for taking time at your Fridays. And don't forget as well, if you do listen to the show as an audio show and podcast, thank you to you as well for downloading the show each week via the relevant podcast players. So what are you up to, guys, next week? Let's go with Armando first.
I'm perfect to start with because I will not be here the next couple of weeks. No, I head out to California tomorrow, so I'll be off of the show for the next probably 2 weeks or so.
Boo.
Boo. Boo. Okay, all right. We'll move on to Nev.
We'll just cry.
Nev.
Tragic. But I'm in. What am I doing next week? Yes, bit of London activity next week. Bit of travelling again. And also trying to find a restaurant where you can actually eat food, because it's all outdoors at the moment, and I spent the last day eating food outside, which yesterday lunchtime was a bit chilly in the
can imagine. I can well imagine. Fresh, so I think, is the word we're looking for.
How we
Fresh
go next week.
Yeah.
Well, that's the plan anyway.
Matt,
Absolutely.
what are you doing next week?
Next week, not a lot really. To be fair, I'm off work now until Tuesday, because Mum went in to have an operation that she's been waiting on for about 10 years. So we're a little bit excited about that, and I almost couldn't believe it as I took her to the hospital this morning because we were still waiting for that phone call to say that it was going to be cancelled again. But I'm delighted to say that she's out and about. So she had a hip operation, and it's in fact I had a communication from her not that long ago, which basically said all okay, out of bed and sitting in chair, hip sore but range of movement increasing already, which is very exciting news. So. There we go.
She'll be on the show next week.
Yeah, so busy looking after Mother next week. Basically, that's the most important job I could be doing this week.
Good. Glad to hear she's sorted and been fixed by the
yes, absolutely.
NHS
At long last. Yes.
So I what am I doing next week? I've got a busy week next week. Although I have
You've
Thursday,
always got a busy week.
Thursday I've got a nice afternoon away with the boss for the day.
Have you
doing a few little jobs in the city, which will involve having a meal out, which is
what outside, of course, obviously.
Outside. So yeah.
Wow.
So looking forward to that. But things are starting to get very busy in the industry that I drive bits and bobs for right now.
Very good.
So it's all good, yeah. But so that's about it then, guys and girls. Thanks again for joining us this evening, and don't forget to tune in next Friday. So from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Matt in the glorious P2K studios, and from Nev in his stately mansion in Buckinghamshire.
Right.
And from Armando, who we're going to miss for a few weeks, but good luck and all the best in your training, Armando. Take care, everyone. All the best, and see you next Friday. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.